Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Justle podcast. I'm Ernie Raposa, your host. Our special guest today is Ilyse Greenberg. Ilyse is a Gallup certified strength coach, an International Coaching Federation certified coach, and she runs her own strengths-based coaching practice. Hi, Ilyse, and welcome.
Hi, Ernie. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
Super happy to have you here, Ilyse. So, welcome to the podcast. We're here to talk about topics that are potentially of interest to folks looking for the next role, the next opportunity, the next phase in life. And you and I had started talking a bit about how folks could leverage their strengths to move towards that next big thing. So
Yeah.
this was just a natural coming together the more and more we talk. So super happy to
Yeah.
have you here, and thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, and then we can get more into what folks can learn from you.
Sure. Well, as you described it, that was my journey, a lot of that, which has been, I've had decades of, doing different things. My career started in accounting and I traveled through an MBA at Kellogg. And then I had several leadership roles in marketing. And before my last marketing job, I was introduced to the CliftonStrengths, which is a Gallup assessment tool. And it really spoke to me. And there's parts of it that it just felt like they knew me.
Right.
and there was a part of it that's just so positive. It's just about strengths. So more importantly than just kind of having it feel like it was giving me a sense of who I was or a mirror up to me, it changed how I viewed myself in the world, in that, like, I didn't have to fix myself anymore. I felt like I spent so many performance reviews, so many jobs, so many things, just trying to improve on the things that needed improving, never once actually considering whether that was like the right job for me.
Right.
And the whole premise of strengths-based is that we are just so much more capable of improving our strengths than we are at fixing our weaknesses. And so instead of worrying about whether I remembered all the sales numbers in a presentation, or I wasn't very good at seeing patterns in data, or I didn't have a clear vision for like the future of the business or even the future of myself, I was able to say, but I'm really good at a lot of other things, and let's explore that. So
and helps you leverage those strengths to either accomplish more in those other areas and learn where you can lean on others for those areas where your strengths might not be as well developed. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so and it was just so impactful for me. And it's funny because that job, I went to another marketing job after that. So I didn't really see the light, but I at least kind of got used to it. And that job was was a Gallup strengths-based company. And so I really, really absorbed the idea of strengths-based, professional development. And after that job ended, I decided I wasn't looking for another job in marketing. I was going to take all the things that I was really good at, to your point. Like, I was really good at the people stuff. I love the mentoring. I love the management, leadership, and putting a team together and seeing them thrive. And that's what I just should have been doing full time. And like selling, toothbrushes was not my passion. It just allowed me to do the things that I really love doing, which was have a great group of colleagues and, help develop people. So that's kind of my journey towards it. And it was about 3 years ago that I started with the Gallup certification to see if did I really like it enough? And I loved it. And then that's what led me towards CTI and the more structured coaching program. So never look back.
And as coaches, as we develop let's say as we build our toolboxes, Clifton is it's one of those all-purpose utility wrenches, because there's so much you can get out of it. And once you've been through the training or even taken an assessment yourself, at least for me, looking inwardly, it makes me want to grab everyone and drag them to the website and make them take a test, because so much of where I've had struggles, where I've had challenges, where I've struggled to, let's say, even tell my story and identify what truly fills my tank, I can see in the report. And it even helps you when you're out there talking about what you bring to the table, those little elevator speech opportunities. Here's me in a nutshell. It's a great way to summarize you and why you're here.
Yeah. It's so, yeah. And I mean, I want everybody to take it. I made my whole family take it. Everybody I know has taken it.
That's
I
great.
haven't found as many people as excited as I am about it, but I'm still pretty excited because I just love the idea of, hey, let's play to our strengths and let's find it. And you're a perfect example. I mean, you have like your top strengths, positivity, individualization. There's 34 different, themes and names of different strengths. And the ones that you have make it so obvious as to why we're doing this podcast right now. You're interested in like me and my story as an individual. And you certainly want to like, help people find their jobs. You've been through it, and your positivity just kind of like shines through in creating something that can really help. And so that's kind of the idea, we can reverse engineer anything. The beauty of this stuff is that hopefully it helps us actually move forward as well. And so, it's such a tool for giving a really good mirror to ourselves and giving us permission to just do what we always thought we should be doing. And so many of us didn't grow up that way, whether we should have or not. Yeah.
And so, it's funny that you bring up the family situation where you really do want to shout about it from the rooftops. And some conversation would be so much easier if you just say, oh, okay, well, what are your top 5? And you can talk about that. Some companies will put that in their introductory slides for internal meetings. They'll say, hey, here are my top 5. So you get a sense of kind of who I am. And across teams, you can say, okay, I need someone for this and this and this. I need someone that can see patterns and data. I know there's that person. I need to have a strategic conversation. I have this person over here. I need to build solid, trusting relationships and partnerships. You look for somebody with a lot of blue in their top 5, right? So So
there is a lot, absolutely, in organizations. It's such a value. And Gallup, that's their business, is they go into these big organizations. And that was my last job, and it was a Gallup, strengths-based company. And what's so also fantastic about it is not only do you learn about your own strengths, but it actually immediately helps you appreciate your colleagues more, and understand the need for partnership, and also the idea that we don't need to do it alone. We don't need to, none of us, and whether, in this context or in a company context, like none of us need to do it alone, because we're really good at some things. And then there's other people who are just really good at other things. And so that's where like the language and the culture can really be part of a company, because you just start to appreciate your differences rather than feeling like you're banging your head against the wall because that person only wants to talk about the data and you only want to talk about, how the team is getting along.
What is wrong with that person?
Well,
exactly.
So.
Ilyse, you and I could nerd out about assessments all day, but we also want to talk a bit more about folks who are in transition, how tools like this could help them get to that next thing. So I know you've been out there coaching, you're talking to folks. What are you seeing out there as common challenges for folks that are in transition?
Yeah, well, I'm seeing 2 different types of challenges, and one is more like inward and to ourselves, and the other one is about what's going on in the outside world. And I actually, my bias is that what's going on inward is actually more important than, however awful it is out there. And so I just want to spend, for the biggest challenge on the inward side is self-confidence. It is so important that people looking for jobs feel confident in who they are, what they're looking for, what they're good at, and what value they provide to that company. And in every interview, we all know it, we have to exude this confidence that we can do the job. And I think, unfortunately, for my clients, it's not even the most talented people, the people who've been successful, depending on why it is that they're looking for another role, they may not currently have that self-confidence. And, am I still marketable? They're asking, and are my skills transferable? And,
Right.
all these negative stories that we keep saying. And so that's one of the big, that's like my kind of 1, 2, and 3 challenge, quite honestly, because I think there's a lot there, but it really fundamentally comes down to that. And the second one is that I think people set unrealistic goals for their timelines and when they should expect to get a job. It's about 6 months is the average for people to get a job from start to finish. So it's nice to keep that in mind. If you're thinking it's 6 weeks and it's not happening, well, it's on average, it's 6 months. And so maybe that helps a little bit. And then,
and just to pile on there a bit, Ilyse, our founder, Dan, has walked through his journey in some of our other conversations on the podcast. And he went through that similar, let's say, initial expectation resetting, because he actually voluntarily left a role and thought, I'll have a new job in a few weeks. It's fine. The market's amazing out there. It's become quite challenging, even with the unemployment being what it is, lots of open positions. There's just too much out there for both job seekers and employers to manage. So he went from thinking, oh, this will be done, to, oh wait, it's been a couple of months. Oh, it's been 4 months. And that your second point there about this being longer than expected, that can start to weigh on folks when they don't hear back right away. They start to see bills pile up. So it's really important to be clear on if you have a job, and being clear on how much time you can be out of work. And if you are suddenly out of work and you don't have a choice, just make let's say, I'm trying to find the word here, set your expectations appropriately and do what you can to stretch your resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in addition to just the 6 months, as you alluded to it, with just with what's going on, both with employers and job seekers and the sheer quantity of it, even just getting back to us and getting, the interview scheduled and hearing feedback and not hearing back, and then sending in a ton of applications and never hearing back. Like those are all byproducts of what's going on outside. So there's the sheer quantity of jobs and applicants is, maddening. And, the tools that we have to make it so easy for everybody just make it so much for everybody. It's so easy to, submit your application to something. Well, that means then 1,000 people are submitting an application to something. There's no magic here. Right.
And right. So you could be a hiring manager being so frustrated about how you can't find that perfect candidate for a role, and you could have 1,000 people on the other side saying, I'm right here.
Yeah, I'm right here, and I haven't heard anything back.
Right.
And they're saying that, it's 6 weeks, that just even companies are taking a really long time just to have people flow through the cycle.
Right.
And so it's everything is really tough. And we just know how nice it is to have places like Indeed and all of these job boards. It feels like the great equalizer in some ways, yet in other ways, it just makes it hard.
Yeah. And we've had recruiters on here, we've had recruiters on here who have talked about how much everything is skewed towards the employer, and the person who is searching is treated more like a product, and that is tough for folks to get through, because recruiters are they're looking for that bonus or
perfect.
And if you don't fit that box, they're on to the next person, and that's some job seekers are looking to develop a relationship with recruiters, and recruiters are like, you're just a body. Right. And that's tough.
And companies too.
Yeah. So, well, and the other, go ahead.
Yeah, there's like another, one of the other things that's really so hard is what you just said, is like companies are looking to put a round peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Not the round peg, like they're moving on. And it's so crazy when we talk about the importance of all the important characteristics of leadership and innovation and critical thinking and all these things that, they're still hiring for the checklist and the job description.
Yeah. So
And
this
it's
is
just
experiences versus capabilities, and understanding that folks can learn and adapt, and you're more likely to want the people that have that versatility. Versatilists are versatilists. That's the word. Are rare,
Yeah.
rare find.
Yeah.
And they're becoming increasingly important in today's workforce.
Yeah, I just sat in on a Gallup seminar that talked about adaptability being the number one characteristic that's so important. And we are seeing that senior leaders want to hire those people. It's the hiring managers that have to fill the spot, and they're the ones that are just so worried about not hiring someone who already knows how to do the job. So it's a little bit crazy. And I think just that's what's so broken is this hiring manager process, and everybody's being pulled in a ton of directions, including that person. And so, it's just systemically, it's a really tough spot, but maybe we'll get there, because I think the senior leaders really want and need, and we need that sort of thinking as we go, into the future. But so far, they're still just hiring for the checklist. Yeah. And that's kind of a bummer.
Well, I'm seeing what I'm optimistic about are the folks who are asking more about culture and work-life balance, and asking for greater transparency about what will this really be like when I get here. And I know that's something you and I have discussed as well. So that's something you'd like to expand on.
Yeah, that's another really big challenge, though, because I think that the job seekers are getting a lot smarter about it, which is great.
Yeah.
But the companies, it's really hard to know if it's going to be a good fit. It's really hard to know, what's the marketing brochure, and, and what really is it like when you go work there. And so that's one of the things that as job seekers and places things that you guys do is help educate, is those are the types of questions that have to be asked. And there's a bunch of different ways to get at it, but super important to know what the culture's like, because they don't even know, they're swimming in it. So sometimes they know it's toxic, of course, but if it's not toxic, it's just kind of weird. They don't know. They've been there so long. So
and
so actually, that's the challenge.
Have you done any work with folks? This is a quick sidebar, because we would like to dig into this a bit more with an entirely different podcast session around just helping people see toxic environments before you actually get hired. Kind of the warning signs for toxic environments, because that is absolutely something we'd love to have you back on to talk more about.
Yeah, no, I would love it. Yeah, there's definitely, I have been seeing, as I've worked with clients who are going through the process of, through the job search, and, helping them identify what are the red flags that are coming up. And there's it's funny, there's some euphemisms, it's a fast-paced environment, let's say. Well, that just means either everybody's getting burnt out, or they don't have enough staff to do the work. So beware of fast-paced environments, things like that. And so I think and again, job seekers are getting much more well-versed in it. It comes back to self-confidence, because if you're sitting in that room and you are not a buyer, if you're not feeling like you have something to offer to them, then you're not going to ask those difficult questions. We're just not. We're going to feel like, we're the small one and they're the giant, and they get to choose us. And I'd love to see the pendulum switch, that we're the ones with the value. We're the ones who have the brains and what you need. And so we should be allowed and able and feel good about asking those questions.
Great. And that's I wish I could instill that in everyone every day, because it is such a slog out there. And I was just reading an article on Inc. about how when folks start to get down after a certain number of rejections. On average, successful applicants applied for 10 to 15 jobs and received between 6 and 10 rejections. And the average respondent started losing confidence in themselves after the 5th rejection. And there's going to be a lot. So I think for folks to get themselves in the mindset that there's probably a good reason for that rejection, and it might not have been a good fit, and
Yeah.
you may have dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
be in that driver's seat of your own job search and not a passenger.
Yeah.
So that's a
And
great
it's
message.
so, it is, I think you and I can talk about that message forever, because to the Clifton Strengths, we both have positivity in our top 5, which means that we just happen to look at the world that way. And so it comes easy to us to come up with reasons why it was a good thing. It's not easy for everybody. And so what I think, there's different tools and things that can help people stay on the right side of self-confidence and not let these things get to you. But as you said, like, it's just human nature. It's really hard to go through it. Like one of the, there's a bunch of, I can go into just kind of some things some tools and just some different things that I can advice to give on.
Yeah, let's talk about some helpful tips for folks that are out there.
Yeah. The first one, and it does speak to this self-confidence thing very much so, is that just bring your whole self. Like we all, and this is Ernie, we talk about this is coaching, this is kind of everything. It's like it's the whole self is really, and I think even companies and organizations are starting to appreciate that well-being is really important. And so it's not just who your persona is at work, it's like your whole self. And actually, like, it's same with Clifton Strengths, which is like we have these top talents, and that unique combination of top talents is what makes me really special and uniquely qualified for something, uniquely qualified for a job. So like kind of in my old marketing days, it would have been called the unique selling proposition. So it's like, what's unique about me that's different from everybody else?
Right.
And I'll tell and we can walk into different job opportunities feeling that way. I'll tell you that, like, the Clifton, mathematically with the Clifton Strengths, is that there's a 1 in 33 million chance that someone else has the same top 5 in the same order. It's only the top 5, and there's like 34 of them. So it's kind of crazy how unique we are. And when we really let that absorb that, and then we really embrace what's good about us, no one else is going to do that job the way we would. It may not be the way they want us to, and then it's not a good fit. But our best chance of being really fantastic is by doing what we do best and not trying to be somebody else or put on somebody else's clothes, so that's really what's important, is kind of knowing yourself really well, knowing our unique value that we can bring, and highlighting that when we are talking to, employers.
My head just exploded a little bit there. So I would like to dance in that. I will use the 1 in 33 million example the next time I see my wife to let her know how unique and special I am. But in all seriousness, this is kind of mind blowing that we have everyone out there has their own take on how to approach life. And as an individual contributor, as the leader, as a manager, recognizing that folks will have that versatility in approach is just internalizing that alone without even taking the assessment or digging into anything beyond that is really powerful.
It really is. It just makes us think about how much opportunity there is out there for people, for ideas, for, like, we could geek out on positivity here, but it's really, it is kind of mind blowing to think about.
Okay, what else is in your toolbox here?
My toolbox, Well, another one comes straight from the Clifton Strengths, which is like mining for sound bites. So if you do take the assessment, or really any assessment, obviously the Strengths is focused on what we do well and talks about that. So even just going through the report, you can, like, just steal some phrases that resonate with you, and they're like, when they really capture, the essence of who we are. And then attaching that to past experiences, like, that's immediately an answer to a question, an elevator pitch. Hey, what are your strengths? You now have 3 things, and you can do some shorthand and just give a little phrase about each one. And you can say it with confidence because you've been living in, really starting to understand a little bit more. And it just feels different than someone telling you, hey, you're really good at this. Being able to see it and kind of absorb it is really helpful. So just taking whatever you can from these reports, and any assessment is the same way. Like whatever it tells you, like that's language that you can just use in a cover letter, on your resume, like have at it. That's what it's for.
That's great.
And yeah, and another one that I just think is fundamental to where we were headed before is that I want all these job seekers to feel like buyers and not sellers. And I want them to feel like they are buying something, which means that it has to be what they want it to be. They're making a pretty big commitment into buying this job and not selling themselves. And that's really important. It speaks to that confidence. It speaks to, you're shopping for the job, the culture, the opportunities that really best fit. And one of the analogies that I think is just so accurate here is dating, right? I mean, maybe you guys have talked about it before, but the metaphor is just dead on, right? There's the dating apps, and then put yourself out there. And the real key is that, like, I think, you can have a certain profile on a dating app, and then once people meet you in person, if you're 20 years older, they're going to see that. Well, the same thing happens with this, to present ourselves as anything other than who we are. After the first month, we can't keep up any charade that we thought we were going to. So in dating, you can't keep it up. You're either going to end up with a life that's not something that fits you, or someone's going to find out that you're not the person you said you were. And it's the same thing in jobs. Like, we should be able to do our best work every day. And if we're putting on some sort of kind of act, it's not going to work. And someone else is just going to do it better.
Right. And authenticity is so important in life and in the job search journey. And I think for both of those, let's say, toolkit items, and don't go it alone, and being a buyer and not a seller, I wanted to circle back with the not letting that fear of, man, I'm out of work, I have shame, I have insecurity. There are a lot of folks out there who are going through the same thing. And one of the reasons we started Justle is when Dan was on that journey, he put himself out there in every way and decided to just be fully transparent about his journey, and really built a strong network of folks who saw what he was going through, strangers that came to him and said, hey, I see that I can help you based on these very public conversations we've been having out there. And people do inherently want to help. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and say, hey, here's where I am.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed at how many people come out of the woodwork.
I know. And it's really important to feel like you're not doing it alone. It really is. Like and to have the right people in your corner. We all have people, in our kind of lives for different reasons. And this is a time where we want the people who see our best. This is the time where we need to rely on people who see that we're still really great at things when we don't think of it ourselves. So that's, is from a very personal perspective, it's important to have that group. And then even further out, as we think about, whether it's finding a coach or reading blog posts or joining a community like yours and being part of something, it's just feeling stuck is just kind of like, it's such a bad feeling. And again, it's the self-confidence just continues to erode. And so it's like this constant battle almost. Like, how do we just keep this self-confidence going as if it were a muscle, right? How do we keep growing it, and how do we maintain it? And, strengths are one of the ways, which, like, those are the dumbbells. Like, every time you pick up a strength and start thinking about it, right, you're building up your muscle of self-confidence. And so it's really, it's just really important, because we don't ask it, to your point before, we don't ask for help if we're fearful, or if we feel like we shouldn't, or someone else wouldn't, or, there's something wrong with us. It's when we feel and understand ourselves really well that we have all the resources internally and externally available to us. Otherwise, we just shut them down, So it's really important not go alone.
Cool.
And then another one we talked about kind of in the challenge, which is like there's this lack of transparency in knowing whether a job's going to be a good fit or not. And so when looking for a good fit, it's, look for a good fit and trust your instincts, because they're probably right. The things that you can look for is, are you going to be in your job? Are you going to be using your top talents every day? Is it the most of your job if you did a pie chart of it? Does the organization's purpose resonate with you? Is it something that kind of makes sense to you? What do the team dynamics seem like? Your hiring manager, can you see yourself as being a manager, that manager, or a manager in the company based on who you're talking to through the interview process? And what about the senior leaders? I had a job, my first job out of undergrad was accounting at one of the big accounting firms. And it was in New York City, and there were 3 women out of 100 who were partners at that accounting firm. And I was like, I could not be one of them. I just saw them and I'm like, that's not who I am. And it didn't take me very long to leave that job. And so it's just the types of things that we can do when we are looking, is who are these leaders and do we want to be like them? Because what's really important is what the hiring manager views as being, critical and success factors and stuff, but also really important, the CEO, because that's the person that sets the tone. So what's the CEO like? And that trickles down really fast to culture. Right. So, can you talk to people? Can you ask it through the interview process and say, people like you, whatever that means to you. If you're a woman, make sure that there's someone, woman that you're talking to. If you're a person of color, like make sure that you understand, like, is there an affinity group? Are there people there? And so that you can feel like you belong. It's just really hard to know from the words. So it's like, you kind of have to look around. Code words like self-starter is another one. When you hear self-starter, it means like they really have no training.
Here's a very deep pool. Yeah. Swim. Yep.
And by the way, we're not going to manage you very much because I got other things to do.
Right.
So, and those are the types of things. And people go through these processes. They don't automatically hit all of these interviews at once, right? It's a slow learning process that people go through for each company. And I think they get more comfortable. And the bottom line is just trust your instincts. You may not be able to pinpoint exactly what didn't feel right, but there's so many senses that are there in the room or in the Zoom room, and hearing and like feeling and seeing, you're picking up vibes from people, eye contact, whatever it may be.
Right.
Listen to it. Because that's, it's really important. If you're not comfortable during that or feel something there, it just might not be a great fit. And we have to have enough confidence to walk away if that's the case.
That is so powerful. And I call that spidey sense. And it's.
Yeah, you do.
And
you
it's
definitely do.
That is something I've learned to trust over time. And I've had similar experiences where roles look great on paper or career trajectory, and then you get there and you say, ooh. Right.
Yeah.
And you learn to ask better questions and be more, let's say, at the steering wheel.
Yeah. And it's very much in like the coaching concept, the leader within, right? Who's our wisest self? And are we willing to trust our instincts? Like, do we have enough confidence in ourselves to trust that? So, and then the one thing that I'm really passionate about is like, once people get a job, we should constantly be managing our career. It's not to say that we have one foot out the door at all. We can be loyal. I'm super loyal. I want to see things through to the end. I care about my colleagues. And we should really be conscious about what are the accomplishments that we've had. Like every week, Friday morning at 9:30, someone said to me, Friday morning at 9:30, I write down what I learned that week and what I accomplished that week. And so what happens there is when it comes time to writing a resume, or when it comes time to even doing a self-evaluation of a performance review, which is really popular now, there's no recency factor there. You get to see everything that you did, and you also feel pretty good about it because we don't remember all of the things that we've done. And so that's one that's just a great tool over and over.
Yeah.
Just keep track.
Yeah. I do that with my teams. I have a Friday, just check in, celebrate the wins, because it gets so easy to just get into the routine.
Yeah.
Just, okay, what's next? Next challenge. And if you don't stop to really absorb what you've done for all the reasons you just outlined here, to say, hey, what is what are my superpowers? What are my accomplishments? What can I build a portfolio around? One
Right.
for just managing yourself and your career so that you can build your brand at the company you're at. But you never know when things might
Yeah.
change or when another opportunity might come around. I see people who only network when they're in transition, and
Right.
that's a huge mistake because you don't want to be the person that only shows up when you're looking for the
Well,
next
yeah.
thing. And then there are some amazing networking groups out there that are in different industries and specific niches. Get to know those people and build those relationships because you can lift other people up. You can be that person that gets different people connected. I think some of us are just naturally wired to do that.
Yeah.
But if you aren't, put yourself out there because that will pay dividends over time from a
Yeah.
from just being able to help others and also potentially yourself down the road.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. I mean, again, it goes back to strengths. Like for you and me,
Yeah.
that's super easy, right?
Yeah.
For other people, that is like the worst thing in the world to do. And so it's only one tool, right? Like
Yeah.
it's one tool. And maybe there are other things. Like one of the other things could be like find a mentor in your company.
Right.
And like within the first few months, or ask if there's a formal mentor program, or again, if you find people like yourself, reach out to them and ask them to get together. And that might be a better, like at least a way of starting the network, right? So you're starting
Right.
it really internally, then going out into some huge ballroom and, saying hello. So it's just everybody has different ways of doing it, but mentor is really important so that you have a
Mhm.
champion at the organization, and you want to always grow. You want to always like be evaluating whether, another thing is like whether you're journaling or using on that same screen that you're writing all your accomplishments. It's like really be reflective about what you like about your job, what you're good at, what you're not so good at. The more we can be honest with ourselves and ask other people and really be self-aware, the more we're going to be able to manage our career internally and know what we're good at as well as externally. And then also we don't have that huge jumping off a cliff, right? That, to your point, the only time people show up is when they're looking for a job. And if they don't like doing it, that's like adding insult to injury. It's just
Right.
making it worse.
Right.
So,
Well, and
and the
oh,
last,
good. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no,
Well,
no,
you have in the vein of managing your career, you have something I pulled from a conversation you and I had that resonated with me. And the quote is, "Are you still doing enough of what you love?" And because we know there's a part of our jobs that we're
yeah,
going to just gravitate to, and it's going to fill our tank, and it will spark joy and all of that. But and there's going to be the other stuff that we just will have to do.
yeah,
But a
sure,
piece of that pie should mostly be what lights us up,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that should be a big part of our whatever time frame those check-ins should be, because that will be important to our overall happiness, success, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. People are more successful when they are doing those things that they're
Right.
good at, and they're also the same things that light them up. So, I think that's great. And then also the piece of just formal professional development would be the other thing to say.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really, I always found it hard to ask for professional development within my company. It was like, if it was offered, I would take it, but I was not super proactive about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I regret it, because I think that I could have learned so much. I could have learned about myself. I could have met more people in the organization. Like it could have just done wonders for me. And again, maybe it was a lack of self-confidence, that I didn't feel like I was valued enough in order for them to spend money on me, or
Mm-hmm.
which can become self-fulfilling. So I think any sort of formal professional development, ask for it. And when you're interviewing, ask if they have a professional development program, and is it, or is there a stipend that you can have every year, and what does that look like, and is it real? Do people actually use it, or is it
Right.
just kind of like said and then it's not really like used? So I think there's like, that is it's just so important when you continue to manage your career, that you feel like you're constantly growing and learning. Which, yeah, so those are like, I mean, I think those are tools for the
Yeah.
toolbox. And just
Well,
lots of
well,
things to think about, really, more than anything.
yeah, and those are powerful tools, and I think even outside of the assessment platform and the strength
Yeah,
finders, there's the 12 questions that
yeah,
I also found really powerful in part of that regular check-in of do I have a voice? Do I have a best friend at work? Do I have
yeah,
opportunities? So it's just
yeah,
yet another tool in there that
yeah,
if you go onto the Gallup site,
yeah.
you could lose hours of your day. So be careful. There's
It
a lot of
is.
tools in there.
Yeah. And that's about employee engagement. Like
Yeah,
those 12 questions are a really strong indicator of whether an employee is engaged. And when
yeah,
employees are engaged, companies are more profitable.
yeah,
And the other thing that I just to point out the importance of some of these questions and really having your spidey senses out is that like 70% of an employee's engagement is based on their direct manager. So that manager holds the keys to whether they're happy or not. And so
right.
really understanding and hope and not looking past things that you may think are warning signs for your hiring manager
Right.
is really important, because you'll find out within the first 2 weeks whether you were right or not.
Well, Ilyse, we are coming up on time here, and
Great.
I loved this conversation. I
So
have
fun.
so much to process when we're done. So just in closing, anything here that you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, well, again, the positivity strength space in me says that like we really do get to control more than we think we do. I totally agree that in general the system is stacked against the job seeker just in so many ways. There's also a lot of ways that we can take control as
Mhm.
long as we feel like, again, it comes back to this self-confidence and always making sure that we're being true to ourselves. We're being like kind to ourselves in that we are feeling good about things. And if we're not, then we seek help or answers. When we have that confidence, it's like it's just a catalyst for creativity and energy and using your talents. And then it's also an antidote for a lot of negativity and self-limiting thoughts which come up when you get those rejection letters. So it's really important. And then having people around you, and then once hired, just continue to actively manage it. Nobody wants to feel like a lot of us have felt when we just didn't know, starting at zero just
Yeah,
doesn't feel good.
yeah,
So, and pay it forward, help others. Like, as you said, like there's so much. If someone calls, like answer the phone. Someone asks you, like, one of the really, I think, important things that I didn't mention, I'm sure you've mentioned it a bunch of times, but like, because there's all these job boards and stuff, it comes back to, old fashioned networking.
hmm,
Maybe it's using LinkedIn, but if there's a job that somebody wants, what they should do is look at it, apply for the job online, and then look to see through the network if there's someone that they can be introduced to in that company. That's the way to break through. And so when people call, answer the phone, because you might be calling them next time. And
right.
that whole pay it forward thing is really, really, I think a lot of people do feel that, which is really nice. You're surprised at how many people are willing to help, to your
Yeah,
point.
and I think it's
So,
important too to check the company and check your network first, because some companies have policy where if you've already applied for the job and then you try to use a reference
oh,
internally, they may say, oh, well, they already applied, it's too late. So it might actually be more
oh,
beneficial to say,
yeah,
who do I know? Who in my network could
yeah.
potentially,
At least
because
find out.
yeah,
Yeah,
lots of companies have internal referral programs. So
that's
even if you
true.
don't know them
Yeah,
well, you could make them some money. So it's always good to do a
yeah.
little sleuthing before you
No,
actually hit
that's
that apply
true. The
button.
referral
Yeah,
programs, yeah, the referral programs are definitely getting more popular. That's true. And you may as
yeah,
well
yeah.
pay
Well,
somebody
and,
for it.
and
It's
we
good.
ask all of our guests here, at least, as we look into your what you would do if you were stranded on a desert island, if you were allowed a personal item, whether it's a book, food, a famous person. What would you have on that island with you?
Well, if I had an endless supply of chocolate chip cookies,
Mm.
that is all I need. A good chocolate chip cookie, endless supply. Is that legit?
So
Can I say that?
soft chocolate chip
Not
cookies or
just
more crunchy?
no soft ones, the really
Okay.
big chunky ones. Kind of. Some of them look like a baseball.
Yeah, yeah.
Have to
I'm with you.
be. Yeah, yeah.
I
That's
think
just.
I'd need something like milk or hot chocolate or something
Mm.
to
And I
accompany
don't.
those.
No,
No,
I can go solo. No, I think it's like
you're a
all food
purist.
groups. Like, yeah, it can go, it can be all the food groups. You've got the chocolate food group, you've got like the batter food group. Yeah, I'm good. I don't need anything else.
Thanks, Ilyse, for joining us. We're so excited you could come and talk about this very important topic for our job seekers. For folks that want to learn more, we'll post some links to the Clifton Strengths site where you can learn more about these assessments. And if you'd like to talk more with Ilyse, she has a website that we'll post here, and you can set up time with her to chat about your own journey and how she might be able to help you get there. Thank you,
That's
Ilyse.
great.
This
Thank
was a
you. I
pleasure.
appreciate that. So fun. All right, Ernie.
Take care,
Thanks for doing
everybody.
this.
You bet.
Yeah,
Bye
take care.
bye.